sitting on the ground, hands tied, as cops pepper spray the faces of demonstrators, forcing them to keep their heads up. This, at the University of California, Davis, is one of many scenes that came out of the Occupy movement. Police took many approaches to crowd control, some more visible than others. Occupy Montreal protesters allegedly faced a different matter. Several of them were marked by invisible ink on their hands by cops. Constitutional attorney Julius Gray represented several of these protesters. He had this to say.
There was a protest for several months in which people occupied a certain square in Montreal, and the police arrested some of the people, told the others to disperse, but only let them go if they were, if you like, marked with invisible ink. And some people even said they didn't accept. The police says they accepted because that was the condition, and they say it's a reasonable condition in the circumstances.
There is a trend of cops using invisible ink, as advertised on this website, used by some police departments to purchase tools, labeled as a defensive device. So it was an invisible ink pen just like this one that cops used to mark those Occupy Montreal protesters, marking their hands with invisible ink so that they could identify these law-abiding demonstrators later on. It turns out police departments in the U.S. have found uses for this ink. Police want people to use the pens to mark their property with either an address or phone number. Officers are getting special flashlights that read the invisible ink, so when they encounter someone with property they suspect is stolen, they have a way to prove it and trace it to the owner. But what happens when inking property turns into inking people, as it did for the protesters in Montreal? When cops can mark citizens in protest with invisible ink, what else can they use? Introduced to the police market, a DNA gun featured in the Las Vegas SHOT Show this year. A DNA gun that leaves an invisible trace on the skin.
What we have here is a DNA pellet marking system which fires these little balls here, and in each of these balls there is a unique DNA code with a UV optical brightener. It's designed to allow the police and law enforcement to mark offenders in a riot or a crowd control situation. And when the pellets are deployed through this gun and they hit the skin, it actually leaves an invisible mark that's only visible under UV light that can be forensically analysed to allow the perpetrator to be put at the crime scene.
From invisible ink pens to DNA guns, these gadgets walk a fine line between cops just doing their jobs and civil rights violations. In Washington, Margaret Howell, RT.